Christmas is around the corner. Santa is getting his team of reindeers ready, but they're lucky that they're not coming up against Unai Emery's starting 11. Instead, that's Mr. Klopp as Aston Villa take on Liverpool on Boxing Day in our first game for what feels like a million years. Join us for our predictions. This is Talk of the Trinity.
Hello and welcome to this. Hello to this festive edition of Talk of the Trinity podcast. I mean, we're already excited. You could tell from my. Could anybody be more excited than me right now? Don't answer that question. But I am excited, Baz Barrett. With me he's always excited, Mr. Trinity himself, Will Forrest, and we are, in this episode, we've been inspired by the Christmas season because we're going to be talking about, it's not quite the ghost of Christmas past, but it is a little while ago in Villa history because you thought we'd forgotten about it, but we haven't. We're going to be talking about Villa Brighton. Seems like it happened a while ago because it did, but that's our ghost of Christmas past. Our ghost of Christmas present is, we're going to be talking about Emi Martinez because whilst he hasn't been spreading Christmas cheer, Mr. Trinity has been spreading debate on our Twitter page at Talk of the Trinity, where we do keep you up to date with all the Villa news. We put some polls there. We seek your opinions and we do thank you for your opinions because we do like to know what the Villa fans are thinking. But you keep checking us out on our Twitter page at Talk Trinity. And the Ghost of Christmas Future is going to be part of this episode as well, because we are going to be giving our preview, our thoughts ahead of the game on Boxing Day, Monday night on Amazon in the UK. Other channels are available overseas, where we welcome Liverpool to Villa Park. And if before the game, the Twitter page isn't enough for you, go and check out our YouTube channel, Talk of the Trinity, where you can check out our videos. If you're listening to this episode on one of our audio providers, Apple, Amazon, Spotify, Google, FanHub, some other places, and you're thinking, I wonder which Christmas character Mr. Trinity is dressed up as for this episode, get to our YouTube channel because it has all of our previous video delights on there, including our previous episodes with guest stars, friends of the show, and because it's Christmas, we might even be having a special guest pop in through our proverbial chimney at Talk of the Trinity Towers later on. So keep listening or watching for that because he's going to bring some Christmas cheer to your hearts, no doubt. And speaking of Christmas cheer, because it is Christmas, we're usually quite a family-friendly show, but for those on the YouTube channel, you'll be able to see that I've got a bit of a festive beverage in my hand right now, an Aston Villa Purity Ale. So before we get started with the business of today, I'm just going to say cheers and wish you all a Merry Christmas while I take a delicious sip of this adult beverage. There you go. You listened or watched a man drink a can of beer. That is the power of this podcast. And speaking of the power of this podcast, we are going to go straight in to Villa Brighton. I mean, it was a whole World Cup ago that this game happened down on the seaside when we went to the Amex and came back with a 2-1 win. 13th of November, it was a Sunday. My first question to you, Mr. Trinity, is, does anything from that game even matter the slightest now? Is there anything we can actually take from it moving forwards? Like, basically, do we need to do this review of the game, or is it a fascinating insight into the Unai Emery era, which will start on Monday or restart on Monday against Liverpool?
Yeah, well, first of all, Merry Christmas and Merry Christmas to our listeners who aren't knobs on Twitter and even to the knobs as well. Yeah, hope you choke on your sprouts. Anyway, yeah, I think, you remember that it was only Unai's second game in charge of us in the Premier League. Of course, we had that double header against Man United with the second one not going to plan, with the next Lionel Messi tearing us apart when he came on, Ganacho. So we needed a bounce back and we needed a win before the World Cup break, especially with so few players going to be playing football over that period, unless they were down the local park with the mates, maybe,
Yep. Or playing Villarreal.
Yeah, on those cold nights, going over to Abu Dhabi.
Yep. On those hot nights.
Yeah, game against Fred Flintstone and Barney Rubble over there. But so it's one of those we had to win. And against a team like Brighton, who had just started to pick up form, who had got a player like Adam Lallana on form and a Danny Welbeck who will always score against us, it was a big game to try and see if we could get an away win and to see if we could finish off that little first bit of the season on a positive note, get us a bit away from the relegation zone and closer to the top half of the league where we want to be and where our owners very clearly have aspirations of us ending up. I'm going to be completely honest. So I watched it on the telly, didn't go down, and I tend to watch a lot of matches with my mum and my stepdad, as you know, Baz.
Yep.
My mum played an integral part in me supporting the Villa, and my stepdad's a massive Villa fan as well. So they invited the family round to go and watch it. We were late. We were about 10, 15 minutes late. And at that point, I already knew that Alexi McAllister, who maybe had a decent World Cup, had gone and opened the scoring.
Second best Argentinian not called Messi, I'd say, in the World Cup.
He was pretty fantastic.
I'll throw a quick one in there, quick sidebar.
Okay.
McAllister.
Yeah.
Would you have him at Villa?
Yeah.
Yeah. So would I.
Mate, I'd have Kevin McAllister and his mom at the Villa at the moment.
We had Gary McAllister. I wouldn't have him back.
No, not for a third time. But then, we went 1-0 down, but we fought back. We got the penalty, that fantastic run by John McGinn, and he won the penalty. He won that foul.
He won it. Bad. I mean, I think it's in terms of what I'd say about the penalty is it's like, I'd probably say more than half the penalties in terms of if the goalie wouldn't have got in the way, would the striker have got the ball? No. But the goalie gets in the way, clean him out, and people kind of forget about the ball kind of by that stage. It's like, yep, you got in the way, you fouled him, it's a penalty. Because in terms of if it was halfway up the pitch and somebody kicked the ball past a player and the player kicked him, then it would still be a foul. But it's just that in the penalty area, it just takes a whole different dynamic, a challenge like that. But yeah, it was one. I agree with that in terms of it wasn't quite to the scale of, was it Cristiano Ronaldo in the World Cup? He won a penalty by sticking his leg out, and I think it was Kalina, kind of the head of the refs, kind of did a kind of review after the game, saying, "Man, what a great bit of skill by Ronaldo to win that penalty. What a clever bit of play." But no, Danny Ings, he won it. It was like he got there first, got the ball, keeper took him out. Yeah, that is what is traditionally a penalty.
I think the thing is, like, when you mention the Ronaldo one, to be honest with you, I don't watch B-rate players. I watch Villa players and Argentinians.
And Danny Ings.
Mate, A-rate.
I've always
now that you brought him up, seems that you brought him up.
Yep.
I was being nice when John McGinn won that penalty with the Lewis Dunk foul on him. But Danny Ings, mate, he saved our bacon that day. He got the 2 goals against Brighton. Brilliant penalty. It's a penalty that Argentina would have been proud of, especially with Emi Martinez telling Dybala to stick it straight down the middle. Thumped it down there, gave the Brighton fans a little bit of argy-bargy. There you go, Joe. I've made it 1-1. And then, of course, we went and we scored our second. It took a very lucky deflection off Levi Colwell. But I thought that we did enough to win the match. And I know that there were Brighton fans after the game on Twitter and that saying, "Oh, anti-football, Villa are anti-football." I've got a phrase that I turn to in times like that, and it couldn't give a shit, mate.
Yep.
Because at the end of the day, you just want to win matches, and if that means that you stand on the ball or you kick the ball away, you take a little bit longer to take a throw in, or you get to take a corner and decide that your teammate on the other side of the pitch is better off having it instead, then do what you can to win. That's the mentality that you need. Of course, you want to play lovely free-flowing football to get into the lead in the first place. But once you've got that lead, you want to hold on to that for dear life. You don't want to make it easy. There you go. You can just come and open us up. No, thank you. I've been getting about 8 in defence at the end. Even Cameron Archer looked like he was a left wing back to finish.
I mean, what I'd say in terms of comments like that, based on the first half of the season when Gerrard was in charge, you didn't have to try very hard kind of to cut us open, really. So I think the first job of the Emery era was just to make us hard to beat, and get us well organised. And we were defensively without the ball. I mean, we noted it after the Man United game. Sometimes, especially in the second half, it was almost like back six, kind of that 4-4-2. You kind of we got the wider players back in the defensive line. As you said, you earn that prerogative when you're ahead. In terms of you get that lead, and it's okay. Yeah, you try and break us down, and in terms of the other kind of the dark arts, I suppose, as you mentioned. Teams like Man City do that. Every team does it, but it's just more in terms of Man City. You just know that they can go and knock 4 or 5 past you if they tried. Apart from against us when we got Tyrone Mings in defence. But generally speaking, in terms of we're a team who, the end of October, we were getting smacked 3-0 away at Fulham. Absolutely dreadful. No clue at all, really, in terms of tactical nous. You're not going to go from that to Man City in the space of 2 games. I think, in terms of what we were able to do in 2 games was pretty impressive in terms of getting shape. And that just shows in terms of somebody with a bit of tactical nous, bit of time on the training ground, you can actually, you get a plan, you stick to it. Like in terms of, if you've listened to our World Cup review episode, talking about teams with tactics and a plan, like Morocco, for example, in terms of World Cup, they had a clear tactical plan, stuck to it. I mean, some people could argue their downfall was when they try to attack too much, kind of in the semi-final. You could argue that. But no, you get yourself organized. If you haven't got the best ability in the world, and there's some players with ability in this Villa team, we're not a bunch of bums, but, you start off by making yourself difficult to beat, and then you add stuff in an attacking flair. After that, in terms of, the old cliches you can throw out, if you don't concede, you don't lose, kind of all that kind of affair. So I think also it is very much a situation when your team does it, you love it. But if somebody else does it against you, you're kind of shouting, kind of at the ref and everybody else in terms of that. But, I think we got to start somewhere, especially in terms of we were behind after 60 seconds, bit of a horror start, as you mentioned. And I think in terms of the second goal, obviously, the scorer took your attention, but it was nice in terms of, for the first goal, it was Doug Luiz gave the ball away, really, didn't he? It was kind of a mistake from him. The winner, Luis kind of getting his own back, and I think it's that in terms of keep going, keep attacking, in an aggressive sense, not hiding, in terms of it can be easy. In terms of you get behind early on. If that would have been in the Gerrard era, we would have conceded that goal after a minute. We wouldn't have won that game. No. I'm fairly comfortable saying that. So it was a good sign that Luis, okay, I mean, his shithousing wasn't to Emi Martinez standards during the World Cup, but there was a bit of, that goal was like, yeah, come on then, I kind of shown you type thing. And we need a bit more of that, because we've said repeatedly through kind of previous episodes, we do need a few more shithouses. I mean, well, we certainly got one in goal that we'll come on to later on. But yeah, I mean, you want a bit of an edge, and in terms of it was like in terms of England, we're talking about the World Cup. We're seamlessly kind of going between the two because we just have the World Cup. In terms of the 2018 World Cup as opposed to the 2022 World Cup, I think in terms of the quality of the England team in 2022 is better, player for player, than the team we had in 2018. But one of the big steps the 2018 team took that we carried on was a bit of shithousery, a bit of, standing up to be counted, especially that Colombia game I remember in the second round, which I think was a real turning point for this England team. And we're still going on that positive journey since then. The Colombians were trying absolutely all sorts against us in that game. And we stood up to it and we gave a bit back. And, it's kind of once you might not win every game just because you stand up and kind of don't take their shit and give some of your own. But there's that reaction you can have at that stage. You can kind of hide or you can kind of front it up. And I think the fact kind of, not maybe on the same scale away at Brighton on a Sunday afternoon, but we're starting to front up. And, in terms of that's the place this team has to start. And there is the quality in the Villa team to add the attacking things later on. Well, hopefully not so long later on. But, in terms of to echo your point, you win. You don't care what people say. You've won. Right. It's like, so you get on with it.
You're right. You're right completely. And as you mentioned there, if you don't concede a goal, you've got at least a point at the end of the day, and it's points that are going to move you up the league. You prefer 3 rather than 1, but we definitely need more shithouses, as we've said, and you want to see a few more of those claret and blue names on Santa's naughty list next year, hoping that John McGinn's got it in his locker. We've seen Tyrone Mings baiting the Blues fans when we beat them 1-0 when old Jack won us the game down there. We've got a few other players who Ollie Watkins off the ball can be a bit of a shithouse. We've definitely got it there, and you hope to see more of it, because as nice as it is to watch for us and not for others, it's a winning mentality, and that's the thing that we have lacked at Villa Park for years and years and years, is a proper winning mentality. We had it for a while under Smith. We dropped off when we came back to the Premier League and eventually found our feet again. We had that winning mentality whenever Jack played under Dino, but we just haven't had it for a while. So hopefully that's something that Unai has brought over from Spain with him.
Yeah, I mean, I think generally speaking, you don't play good football when your confidence is down, when you're struggling, when you haven't got the belief. So you need to get the confidence back first, and then it's again another cliche. People say, "Oh, he's in the mood for it. He's kind of up for it." That's not usually when you're feeling crap or when you've been playing crap. And in terms of how do you get in that position, you just got to get the points on the board. You got to get the performances, and that usually comes from just getting the tactics right, getting the desire right, without wishing to sound too Roy Keane about it. All the kind of cliches, discipline, determination, getting stuck in. You don't got to throw into that, but you got to start somewhere. Yep. And in terms of the Unai Emery era in the Premier League with 2 wins, we certainly hit the ground running, and you got to hope it continues. And I think that Brighton win, I don't quite believe this, but I'm going to throw it out here just as a hot take, a conversation piece. You could arguably, and again, I think the answer to this is no, but I'll throw it out there. Could you say it was arguably more impressive than the win at home against Man United? Because against Man United, kind of nothing to lose. We haven't beat them since 1873. We hadn't been founded in 1873, but, we'd still played them before then and lost. So nobody was expecting anything in that United game. Hit them cold. I mean, they're playing Ronaldo. I mean, it was so long ago. Ronaldo was still a footballer, but, who knew? So that was kind of a free shot. Whereas, Brighton, you kind of maybe going there, even though Brighton will be doing very well in the Premier League this season, in the top half of the table, dealt with their managerial departure very well. They're still, if you're going to say who you're more likely to get a result from, Brighton or Man United, you'd probably say Brighton. So more impressive against coming back against Brighton, or is that, as I think it is, still a bit of a crazy talk, but still a nice feeling to be able to beat both?
Do you know, I don't think it is that crazy what you're saying, really, to be honest with you. Man United was very much a free hit for Unai. You know, you hope you had the first game bounce under the new manager or first couple of games. But had we have lost, it would have been, okay, he hasn't had much time with the team. It is Man United. We haven't beaten them since, you know, we had that T-Rex up front. It's one of those. Whereas Brighton, you know, with them, Brighton have done very well. They are riding the crest of a wave for the majority of the season, despite having that little blip when the Zebra first took over there. But I think
a Zebra and a T-Rex up front, that is the little and large combo that most clubs were going for in the mid-2000s.
I think if you'd have said to me in the mid-90s, going back even further, it would be more impressive to beat Brighton away than Man United at home, and it will be more difficult to beat Brighton away than Man United at home. I'd have said to you, did Brighton have a football team? I thought they only had a pier.
Well,
you know,
they didn't have a stadium for a bit back then.
I actually think it's probably more impressive when you look at both of the teams really in that moment, at that time, it's more impressive to have gone to the Amex and come back with 3 points and to beat Man United at home. I expected us to beat Man United. I know not many people did, but they did.
It was a good month for you, prediction-wise.
Yeah, I didn't necessarily expect us to win against Brighton, you know, away, but we did. I think if you were looking at it right now, and Ten Hag, after Man United had played the other night, I know it's only Burnley, but with Rashford back on form and with Ronaldo out of the club, who has become a little bit of a poison to them there, I think now it would be more impressive to beat Man United again. But I think at that time, Brighton was a more impressive win, especially coming from behind, away from home, when we haven't won away from home all season.
Yep. Though, in a slightly loaded question, after the game, which was the last game for both teams in the Premier League before we had a break for the World Cup, would you like to hazard a guess how many points separate Villa and Brighton in the league table at time of recording, which is before the Liverpool game?
I'm going to say 5 points at the moment is what separates us.
It's actually 3 points.
I knew that we were quite close to the top half of the league, and I haven't looked at the league table for a long time, and now Arsenal are up the top for a little while, not for much longer. Sorry, Baz. And at the bottom keeps swapping around all the time because Forest will get a couple of wins, then someone else get a couple of wins or something. So I'm not that surprised. I thought he might be a little bit bigger, but yeah, I mean, it just goes to show you get a decent run of form together. And okay, we've got Liverpool and Tottenham, but you get a decent run of form together, we could easily get into that top half, start cementing our place up there. There's a lot of teams who are going to be in that same Royal Rumble as us.
Yep.
You know, us. Leicester started winning not that long ago. You've got your West Hams, you've got your Brightons. Wolves will be hoping for the new manager bounce as well. You've got all of those sorts of teams. You've got one of the top six that's going to be straggling a little bit because Newcastle are on a surge. You know, you've got lots of Palace. One of you's got to knock everybody else over the top rope and point at that WrestleMania sign. Why can't it be us? Why can't we be the ones who are next to put our foot on the mountain and try and get to the top of Everest?
Yep. You mentioned Palace and Leicester there. Palace are 1 point ahead of Villa at time of recording, and Leicester are 1 point behind Villa at time of recording. So very condensed in the middle of the table, as you say, and does take a couple of games. You get on a bit of a run, and I think, you know, we'll do a state of the nation beyond half term by the time we do that in January during the course of the transfer window. in terms of Villa's ambitions for the rest of the season, you'd say top half, as a slight spoiler alert for what I would probably say in a month's time in terms of top half, decent outcome for the end of the season. But any more thoughts you got on Brighton, or shall we keep this Christmas carol going?
I'm happy for you to jump into the next verse, because we've already discussed the angel that was Danny Ings coming and saving us and spreading that little bit of pre-Christmas cheer. Thanks, Danny.
Yep, he did it. Well, you know, we'll do the tenuous link in terms of this next section where we talk about Emi Martinez is going to involve the thoughts of the three wise men in terms of our Emi Martinez discussion, because you may have heard Argentina won the World Cup. You may also have heard Emi Martinez. Well, you've heard it if you've listened to the start of this podcast, because we've already mentioned it probably once or twice. He got himself a bit of a reputation for being a bit of a shithouse, Emi Martinez, which we already knew, really. I mean, Bruno Fernandes certainly already knew, but now it is on the world stage. It's like he's gone global, you know, in all senses. And over at Talk of the Trinity Towers on our Twitter page at Talk Trinity, a slight bit of controversy was caused by Mr. Trinity earlier on in the week when we record this, because we put out a poll in terms of Emi Martinez, and if he left, who would you like to get in? And yeah,
being the key word.
Yeah, some people were not too happy with the insinuation that Emi Martinez would be leaving. So I'm going to throw this question straight here, because, you know, the mob have already got their tomatoes packed, ready, primed for a good throw-in. This time next year, when we're doing another Christmas special in 2023, do you think, and this isn't do you want, because I think do you want, the answer is clearly yes for everybody, I would say. Do you think this time next year that Emi Martinez will be at Villa?
If you'd have asked me this morning, my answer would have been different to the answer that I'm going to give you now. But the long and short of it is, yes, I do think he will be a Villa player next year. Now, from what I've just said there, I obviously didn't think that before. I felt that the law of Bayern Munich or the law of Juventus, you know, teams, and I think I've said many times on the podcast that it will be a team like Bayern Munich that comes and takes Emi Martinez when Manuel Neuer eventually hangs up his gloves. Though I think at the moment he's loyal. I believe he's loyal. I believe he's committed. You look at Arsenal and his time there, and he played what, 13 to 30 matches, something between that ballpark figure. He went out on loan like 8 different times in 10 years, but he was loyal to them, and he was loyal to that club. And we've done a lot more for him than Arsenal ever did. Okay, he won a couple of trophies at Arsenal, and fair play, you know, for that. He was instrumental in the Community Shield and the FA Cup.
What Arsenal did was get him in the window for a move to a bigger club. Yes, I went there. We've done it.
But he did. And at the end of the day, he wanted assurances there. He didn't get them. And that's when he was like, I'm ready to be a number one. He came to us. He showed and he's shown all along with his interviews just what the team and the club mean to him, what the fans mean to him, how he jumps in and celebrates with them. The interview with Mark Bosnich at the start of the season, in pre-season, where he says he wants to beat Bosnich's records. He wants to win trophies with Villa. I genuinely believe that he will stick around for the next 18 months. But I think there will be a couple of provisos in there. And I think that is that we need to show that we are challenging in the cup competitions. So when we play Stevenage, we put out a strong team and we go to win that, and we try to get as close to the final as we can. We don't just think, forget about it. Let's focus on the league. And I think also that we have to show that we've got ambition in the transfer window. And with bringing in Unai Emery, and with the rumours that he wants a statement signing, I think that Nassif Suarez and Wes Edens, but particularly Nassif, have to back in. They wanted Emery. They got their man. They got a world-class manager. He's not going to stick around if he can only spend pennies on players. He's going to want to get some big, badass motherfucker in for 30 or 40 million, and spending that type of money on players regularly, whether that's Yeremy or whether it's Jackson, Torres from Villarreal or some other players. It's statements, and you can even make statement signings as well without having to spend too much money. You look at Coutinho. He was a big statement signing for Gerrard. The name was, it didn't cost the world. I think, well, we've been linked with Moussa Dembele, the old Fulham striker. 4 million. He would be quite a statement signing.
Isn't he about 42? By now.
He's about 27 still, isn't he? 27, 28.
Is he? Oh, I think I'm getting my Dembele's mixed
You're
up.
thinking about the Tottenham centre midfielder, whereas I'm on about the bloke who was up front for Celtic and Fulham, smashing him.
Yeah, there we go. I feel slightly more comfortable about that, Dembele.
I think he'd be a good sign. And then when you see that we've been linked with, and I believe it's tongue in cheek, but Yao Felix, it's those sort of signings that are going to keep Emi Martinez around. And it's those sort of signings that are going to get us up the league. And if that means that one or two players who we know and love end up being a sub or end up leaving to get first team football elsewhere, but we're challenging, then unfortunately it's a sacrifice that you have to make.
Yeah, I mean, I agree in terms of there will have to be commitment shown in terms of the transfer budget, in terms of giving Emre the money to bring his own players in. I mean, we've given Emre the longest contract that a Villa manager has been given in history. So you got to give him the opportunity to stamp his mark on the club. I mean, in terms of Gerrard was given the money to buy a couple, kind of his big players. Diego's injured, unfortunately. Coutinho, kind of, you can imagine he's not on £20 a week. So maybe in terms of the transfer fee, I agree, it wasn't like 40, 50 million, but wages are significant, you would expect. Yeah, I agree in terms of it's not just going to be buying somebody in January, not necessarily just buying somebody in the summer. We're going to have to consistently invest in the squad over a couple of years. And as you say, try and improve the quality of the squad in order to convince players who are going to have admirers elsewhere that this is the place for them to grow. I mean, in terms of the rumours about Martinez leaving in January, I don't buy them at all. In terms of, clubs might be interested. Yeah, I'm not ruling that out. That, well, who wouldn't want a World Cup winning goalkeeper if the opportunity arose? But I don't believe he would want to go in January, and I don't believe we'd sell him, even if
silly money. It'd have to be silly money, wouldn't it? It'd have to be.
I think that's
art figure.
Yeah, there's silly money, and then there's like silly plus in January because nobody likes selling their best players in January, so it's difficult to get value. Although I did throw a curveball at you in terms of the opening Martinez question, because we do a little bit of prep for this, because you did actually give me some questions in terms of Martinez, which is needed because our special Santa coming down the chimney in a bit, we asked him the same questions as well. So we do need an element of consistency and order, which I'm going to bring. And they are linked to what I was just saying there in terms of value you're mentioning in terms of what would potentially be needed to tempt him away. But we'll go straight with that question then. In terms of, we're mentioning clubs may be interested. I mean, you said Bayern. I mean, Neuer went skiing. Bad idea to go skiing. Don't do that. Expect Juve as well. In today's transfer market, what would you mention Grealish in terms of a silly money 100 million? What would you value Martinez at?
Well, at the end of the day, Martinez is a World Cup winner and a Copa America winner, a Felicissimo winner, a Golden Glove winner at 2 international competitions now. It will sound daft and it will sound very claret and blue tinted, but I'd be hoping that he would become the first triple figure or 6 figure, whatever it is, sign 100 million goalkeeper. I'd imagine that something over about 70 million would be considered, but we don't have to sell. And it's how valuable a player is to the team. Jack Grealish probably wasn't worth 100 million, but he was worth 100 million to us. So I'd be wanting at least the same for Emi Martinez at the moment. I would want 100 million. And I think that really rules out the teams that would be able to buy him. And also against the teams that actually would need him at the moment, because the teams that could afford him probably wouldn't try to buy him, apart from maybe a Newcastle. What about you? How much do you think 100 million? Or do you think that's just completely stupid of me?
Well, I mean, in terms of looking at, if I was going to say to you, who is the most expensive goalkeeper of all time?
Balaga, 82 million, I reckon.
It is Kepa, yeah. I mean, in terms of reports on the transfer fee vary between 72 to so 72 is the figure I have. But in terms of it's still a lot of moolah anyway, and it could be add-ons, kind of based on kind of achievements and such things. So you play that game, and this was in 2018. The transfer quite a while ago. The same summer, apparently, that I am finding out now that Alisson. Well, I think Alisson went during. He might have gone earlier in the year from recollection. I mean, actually, no, it was after Champions League final. But I'm not a Liverpool fan, so I'm not going to need to know that off the top of my head. But he went for 56. And Kepa went for 72 in 2018. I mean, in terms of the inflation rate in the UK in 2022, I mean, the price has doubled during the course of the last 20 seconds whilst I've been saying this particular sentence. But when you say Kepa's worth 72, well, he was bought for 72. If you're going to say to most people now, do you think Kepa's worth 72 million? Most people would say no, I would think now, in terms of, it's been a mixed few years at Chelsea, some highs, some lows. If you're going on that, Kepa was worth 72 million, is Martinez better than Kepa? You'd say yes, so Martinez is worth more than 72 if you're doing that kind of straight forward analysis. In terms of in January, I'm saying I wouldn't sell him just because we're not going to be able to get anybody in to replace him. In terms of the summer, I mean, I think I agree in terms of the perception, which some of the fans have been saying, is you don't want to be sounding out that you're looking like you're going to sell your best players. But in terms of, if somebody gave in 100 million, you'd sell for 100 for a mil. You'd sell. I mean, in terms of, there's very few clubs in the world who could turn down any offer for any of their players, and they're you can name on your hand, really, in terms of them. And, we want to be there, but we're not there, along with your kind of most clubs kind of in the world. So if somebody comes in with 100 million, I mean, we sold our, in my view, our best player of a generation for 100 million. So I think it was a release clause, I think, from recollection. But if somebody comes in for any of your players for 100 million, you're going to sell, I think, if you're not at the top table, which we're not. Currently, and I don't think that's defeatist. I think that's reality in terms of assuming that the club, and this is, I think, the point that you make, which is a very good point. You got to have that balance between a club who actually needs a goalie who's actually looking for the goalie of that quality, who wants to spend that amount of money on that goalie, and also a club that the player will want to go to. So you got to, as you say, you got to marry all those up. And you don't leave yourself with that many contenders, realistic contenders. That's something else entirely. So it's like a metaphorical 100 million, kind of, you can't just, you might say, as I've just said, yeah, you take 100 million. But in terms of if a team in Saudi Arabia, Abu Dhabi, kind of Middle East had 100 million and they came in and said, we want to buy Martinez for 100 million. Martinez would not probably want to go there. So even if we take the 100 million, that's a different question entirely. But in terms of a monetary value, you'd put it higher than Kepa, I would say. So 80 million plus.
Yep.
And I think in terms of if anybody came to that value, I think we would certainly consider selling. And I don't think that's realistic. Unrealistic, sorry. Because I think in terms of that's a value of a goalkeeper. And we're going to come on to in a second in terms of where we're ranking him currently in the world. But one of the best goalkeepers in the world, we can say before we go into that bit of the conversation, that's up there. They're 80 million. So it's like, okay, I know there's a bit when people know you got money, they kind of try and fleece you for a bit more. But a replacement goalkeeper who we're going to buy isn't going to be for 60 million, you wouldn't have thought. So we're going to be making a profit and, maybe buying another player along the way. So I think in terms of that particular situation, if it ends up, we take the money, if there is a money to be taken, I mean, that's a different scenario and whether Martinez wants to go. But in terms of a monetary value in isolation, if you're going to put it on there, I'd say 80 million plus for me. And we teased the question in terms of, is Martinez the best goalkeeper in the world at this current time? And if not, who is? So for you, first question then of that two-parter, is Martinez the best goalkeeper in the world at this time?
Well, I mean, automatically, because he's a Villa player, the answer would be yes. But if I'm thinking about it from the average fan of other teams' point of view and whatnot, no, Emi Martinez isn't the best goalkeeper in the world. However, I do believe that he would be in the top 5 goalkeepers in the world. I don't think he's the best in the Premier League, but I think he would be in the top 5 goalkeepers in the world.
I mean, I'd agree with you in terms of not the best goalkeeper in the Premier League. I think because, again, if you haven't listened to it, go and listen to it. Our World Cup review, it was a very good point that you made in there when you weren't gloating about getting all the predictions right. When there was some analysis in there, you made the point in terms of some of kind of the goals that were let in by Martinez, some of the performances that came before penalties. If you were being a nitpicker, kind of could have done better on a couple of occasions, maybe with a couple of the shots. So you can't call yourself the best goalkeeper in the world in that scenario. In terms of penalties, you'd have absolutely nobody else. Kind of, if you can pick anybody, you're going to pick him to be the goalkeeper. In terms of the Premier League, I think we've said in previous episodes that we kind of both kind of had him third, kind of at the start of the season, kind of Alisson and Ederson, and then Martinez. I would probably still stick with that if I was being honest. I mean, that's no disgrace because then, as you've said, Martinez goes in the top 5 in terms of the world. I mean, he's certainly I think off the top of my head, he's certainly top. Who else kind of outside the Premier League are you putting in there? I mean, Neuer's. I wouldn't have put him above Martinez anyway. Like now, and especially like literally right now because he's broke his leg. So they're not very good goalkeepers when you can't move with a broken leg.
No,
but
no.
You'd have in terms of who is there, Dominara, the Italy goalkeeper. Other goalkeepers who had like Croatian goalkeeper had a very good World Cup, but you wouldn't put him above Martinez. So, most people, if I was being mischievous, you'd throw De Gea out there, but being as though on the basis we've said we put Martinez third in the Premier League, then that gets shot down. So comfortably top 10.
I'd definitely top 5 for me. And I mean, I'd always have Ederson over Alisson. I think Ederson's a better goalkeeper. I think Alisson's got too many mistakes in him now. Ederson hasn't exactly covered himself in glory this calendar year. Though form over a calendar year apparently isn't that important, is it, keyboard warrior? You know what I'm talking about. The other two, Donnarumma, I think potentially is the best goalkeeper in the world at the moment. Apart from that, and despite his country having a dodgy World Cup, Thibaut Courtois at Real Madrid.
Yep.
And the thing with that is that these are goalkeepers who consistently play at a high standard, are winning leagues, are winning cups, are winning Champions Leagues and whatnot. And because I'm saying that, you probably think it's a bit daft, or some people will, that we are discarding Manuel Neuer, but Manuel Neuer's on a downward trajectory in his career. Great goalkeeper, but he's not what he used to be. You've got Ederson. Okay, he can't get into the Brazil team, but he's competing with Alisson. But Ederson is winning trophies year on year on year. Alisson is winning trophies for Liverpool, and he's getting into the Brazil starting lineup. Donnarumma is now winning trophies at club football because he wasn't getting any or many at AC Milan, and he played a massive part in that European Championship win for Italy.
Yep.
Thibaut Courtois is winning trophies year on year in the Champions League, which some people would think is the hardest thing that you can win domestically or at club level. But then you've got Emi Martinez, who doesn't win a great deal at club level. He has done at Arsenal, as we said before. However, he's gone and won the Copa America. He's gone and won the Finalissima, and he's gone and won the Holy Grail in the World Cup as well. And that alone could make you think that he is the best in the world. And if he had a defence, anything similar to the Real Madrid defence or the Liverpool defence in front of him at club level, that he'd be by far and away the top goalkeeper in the world. You know, like the others, he makes a mistake or two. But I'm quite happy that we've got one of the top five at the moment. And I think that he's only going to get better and better with stronger players coming in to our starting lineup and our defence.
Yep. Off the top of my head, Oblak is the only other goalkeeper I could think of who you could potentially throw into that top goalkeeper conversation.
He's a bit of an enigma, isn't he? Because he doesn't win much with Atletico at all, or at international level, but he is a top-class goalkeeper, as you say. There aren't many of them. I mean, you probably have some going, what about Hugo Lloris? He's won the World Cup. He's won the European Championships. He's a bit of a Martinez, because he ain't going to win Tottenham.
Well, yeah, he historically, he's been a very historically consistent goalkeeper. But yeah, is he as good a goalkeeper now as he was 4 years ago? No, but that's not a disgraceful comment, because, well, apart from things that are generally negative, most people were better at most things when they were younger, kind of than when they are now. But he's still playing at a very high level, Lloris. But so we've put it in terms of where we're ranking Martinez in terms of the world list, but in terms of the Villa list, as it were, how valuable is Martinez to this current Villa team? And I suppose we've kind of touched upon in terms of hoping if he's in the future Villa teams, demonstrating his importance. But in terms of this Villa team, how important is he?
Out of our current players that we have got in this team, he is and that are fit and available to play. He is the second most important player in our starting 11, in my opinion. And that's because you ask any Villa fan, player, anybody, would you be happy with Robin Olsen in goal? And the answer would be no.
Well, stay tuned for our Liverpool preview. we'll find out about that, because that is a reality on Monday afternoon.
I mean, he's just, I've said before as well, you've got to be good to be a goalkeeper in the Premier League or a professional goalkeeper. So he's obviously better than me. However, it doesn't mean that just any old goalkeeper is good enough to play in goal. And when you look at what the rest of the choices are for the Villa, it just goes to show how important Debu is. I know that you're probably going to say, well, if he's number 2, Will, who is number 1?
Yep.
And my
You read my mind.
Yeah, it's not who you think I'm going to say, though his name does rhyme with that person's name.
Okay.
For me at the moment, Tyrone Mings is the most important player in that team. And for why? Because he's a proper leader. He's a captain. He, he has a mistake in him and whatnot. But you see him out of that Villa team and you see just how much we crumble and we go to pot. We need him as that older head, as that dressing room leader, to be able to help players along and to help the team grow and to help the team be harder to beat. I said a year or so ago, you put Tyrone Mings in that Villa team with a better left back next to him, someone better than Matty Target, he's got that now, with a better centre back next to him than Ezri Konsa, and Ezri Konsa has been playing really well this year, but Diego Carlos is better than him. With Martinez behind him and with a proper defensive midfielder, Booba, we will see a different Tyrone Mings. And I think that, with Emery as well as the manager, we will see a better Tyrone Mings. If we can get somebody in who can bring the same level of confidence into the team and is a better player, would I go and get them? Yeah, you want to evolve. And that's no offence to Tyrone Mings. But if you've got a Pau Torres knocking on your door saying, yes, please, I want to play for Aston Villa, you go and get him. But in regards to character, leadership, and, embodying the spirit of what we want the club and the team to be, I think that Tyrone Mings is probably more important and valuable at the moment in this current moment in time, up until at least we replace him.
Yeah, I mean, what I'd say about Mings is
defensive mid, mate. I'm telling you.
Man, if he absolutely, well, to be fair, that might be the only way he gets in the team in a couple of years. If we bring in Pau Torres and all those type of players. But we're recording this episode on a Friday night, and I don't know about you, but traditionally in my house when I was a kid growing up, Saturday was the day where we kind of did the shop for the week, kind of the grocery shop. So Friday night was always a bit of rummage around the back of the fridge, bottom of the freezer, see what's left, and try and make something out of what you got. You maybe haven't got all of the wide array of ingredients and food choices that you may have. So you may have a situation, and I didn't mind this because I quite liked it, but you may have on a Friday night, you might just have a bit of bread and a tin of ravioli. That might be all you've got. And, you might have that dish offered to you or to somebody else, and they say, oh, God, what the hell's that? I don't want ravioli on toast. I mean, that's rubbish. And you might go, well, you got ravioli on toast or you got nothing because, well, we ain't got any food because we're going to shop tomorrow. So that's your choice. You take this or you have nothing. In a literal sense, most people will take the ravioli on toast because it's better than having nothing. I'm not saying that Tyrone Mings is better than nothing, but in terms of this current Villa team, this Villa team is better with Tyrone Mings in than without. I that is true. And, kind of seeing what happened when he didn't play, I think Dean Smith tried it. Steven Gerrard tried it. Didn't really work out particularly well for both of them. I'm not playing Tyrone Mings. So we look better currently with this current squad of players we've got, with the current defenders that we've got. We look better when he's in the team. In terms of, do I think that we could upgrade the centre-back position? I think it's probably one of the easier positions we could upgrade, if I'm being totally honest. In terms of goalkeeper, we couldn't really. We're talking about Martinez, in terms of one of the best goalkeepers in the world. We're not getting a better goalkeeper than Martinez. I mean, we get a better goalkeeper than Robin Olsen, certainly. In terms of left back, in terms of, are we getting a better left back than Luca Digne? Probably not at the current time. I mean, maybe, maybe if the team continues its evolution towards the European places, then maybe we're getting a better right back than Cash currently. Probably not, I don't think. Again, maybe 12, 18 months' time, we might be progressing. I think striker is potentially an area where you could say, yep, go in and get a better striker. I mean, I know feathers will be ruffled in terms of your thoughts in that regard. I mean, well, we haven't got any wingers because Gerrard sold them all. So we could go and get some wingers. But I do think in terms, and we've had this, we're talking about Martinez. So, we've had a conversation about Mings before, but I do think in terms of his Tyrone Mings, I agree with you, is very important to this current Villa team. But I would say that's more because we have not got quite as far as the owners want to be at this stage of their journey as they would have liked. Because, we've had the conversation before. We are on slightly different views in terms of if we're nowhere near the Champions League currently, but if we've had the conversation, if we were in the Champions League, would Tyrone Mings be the first choice centre back? I said no, you said yes. So we have that slightly different view. So I think in terms of current today Villa, Mings, vitally important. I do agree with you. I'm not happy. I'm not comfortable with that position, but that is the position. That is the reality. I think the difference between Mings and Martinez is, as I alluded to there, we could buy better than Mings. We couldn't buy better than Martinez. So that's where I would go in respect of that particular argument. And both of those players, well, one has been captain for a longer period of time than the other in terms of when they have taken the captain's armband. Now that Martinez has won the World Cup and announced himself on the global stage, and because he probably is arguably, certainly the top two in terms of our most valuable players, or best players, or whichever way you want to describe it. John McGinn was captain at the start of the season. Probably safe to say he's not going to be captain kind of for many games moving forwards in the future. Should Martinez be the captain for you because he has won the World Cup, or in a slightly different nuance, should he be captain anyway, regardless of whether he'd won the World Cup or not?
My thoughts in the summer were that we should have kept it on Mings, because I didn't think he'd done a bad job as captain. He got the respect of everybody as well. I think Gerrard did him dirty, and he was trying to force him out of the club, which was completely wrong. However, I don't agree with just stripping people of the captaincy. John McGinn, for me, doesn't seem like a captain. He doesn't talk enough. He's not the same type of players that we've had as captains before, leaders amongst men. However, I think he should be given the rest of the season to see that whether he can be that person and whether he can be the captain that leads Villa back into nicer times. Stilian Petrov wasn't really a captain when he first became captain for us. Neither was Gareth Barry, but they grew into the role, and John McGinn could do the same. But if we were to give the captaincy to someone else without a second hesitation, it would be Emi Martinez, because Emi Martinez, and we've said this before on the show, Emi Martinez is a winner. And you want winners to be captains because they breed that confidence. They have that mentality, that elite mentality. Emi Martinez is our world-class elite player, and we don't have any other world-class elite players in our team, especially current form at the moment. We've had players who have been very high up the mountain before, but aren't there anymore, and could be on their way out if rumours are to be believed. But Emi Martinez, for me, I think if you were going to take it off McGinn, which would be a shame because he deserves an opportunity, it would be Emi Martinez who I would be hoping that captain's armband is passed to. And there's other reasons as well, such as placement on the pitch, being able to see everything in front of you and whatnot. But the main thing is the mentality, everything that he's achieved in his career. And to think that everything he has achieved in his career, he's achieved within the last 3 years, that's pretty good going, to win all of those competitions, both domestically and internationally. He's just he's a phenomenon. He's a force to be reckoned with. So yes, if they take it from McGinn, yes, but till the end of the season, I'll keep it on Meatball.
Yep, as we said before, the best ass in the West, and you can take that how you like.
I've never said it before.
well, you know, maybe I'm just trying to masquerade, you know, in terms of. Well, to be fair, the quote about the best quote about John McGinn's ass was one that I didn't make. It was from friend of the show, Russell Homer, who said he had the best ass since Kenny Dalglish. So take that whatever way you want. But in terms
if
of,
I remember correctly, your quote about John McGinn's ass was, "Oh, sexy, yeah."
well, that was just in the club. That you know that was nothing to do with kind of what was going on the pitch. But speaking of what's going on the pitch, in terms of the captaincy, it's going to be the most basic comment I'm going to make, and people are going to be like, "Well, duh." If McGinn isn't in Emre's thoughts to be a regular first team player, then he can't really be captain. I mean, in terms of he's worked with, well, he could be like the club captain, you know, in terms of that. I mean, he's been working on the training ground with Emre for the last month, so you'd think he has a better idea or understanding of whether he kind of fits into the first 11 kind of moving forward, as he were. I agree with you in terms of if McGinn is going to be in that starting 11, then yeah, keep him captain. If there's any suggestion that he's not going to be, then yeah, I'd move it to Martinez. But, you know, that's in terms of we'll just have to see how that lineup goes. But one man who no doubt will be screaming at the audio provider or the YouTube channel, even though he's already answered the question himself, as you will hear, is friend of the show, Dave Martinez Dance Dave. We think he has just about stopped dancing after Sunday, but we cannot be 100% sure. It'd be like, you know, in terms of trying to get off fossil fuels, you know, for energy, just wire Dave up, you know, kinetic energy, you know, from the last week. That's enough to must be enough to fuel all of Ireland's energy needs for the last year. But you've heard what we have thought in terms of Emi Martinez. We did ask friend of the show, Irish Dave, as he's known to nobody but us, for his thoughts on Emi Martinez. So sit back, have a listen to Dave talking about one of his top 3 favourite subjects in life.
Hi to Baz and Will and everyone at Talk of the Trinity. Merry Christmas to one and all. I'm sorry I can't be there for the live recording of this chat on Emi Martinez. I've got a little 6-month-old baby girl, little Villa fan in the making. So recording time clashes with bedtime, I'm afraid. But knowing that you're talking about the main man who I've been banging on for a few years now, I just had to jump on. First things first, new dance. That'll be in the next time I get out to the nightclubs, whenever that is in another lifetime. That'll be my new move. Okay, but I wanted to just partake in the discussion, and I see the first thing you're going to be talking about is how important is Emi to the Villa side. Well, regardless of the World Cup and international duty, Emi's really important because he's a good keeper and he makes saves, and he'll keep the odd clean sheet or get us an odd draw that where we would have been defeated by 2 goals, so he will get points for us. There's been this narrative that Emi wasn't as good as he was when he first signed in his first season, but I think the Villa team as a whole isn't as good as when he first signed. So he's still a really good goalkeeper. He's still important in that respect. The bigger picture now is that he's won a World Cup, he won the Golden Glove, and he's a hero in his hometown and all around Argentina. So when people go and read about Emi Martinez, they're going to see the name Aston Villa, and they may never have seen that name before. Our owners are all about growing the brand and growing our image. So this is huge. And so when a player now, if we're trying to attract them, Aston Villa come calling, they'll say, oh yeah, that's Emi Martinez's team. And now that we've got Unai Emery and he's won all those competitions, a wonderful appointment, hopefully now we're a more attractive prospect for, you know, potential players, because I think one of the issues for Steven Gerrard was he didn't really attract the players that he wanted to, you know, to implement his style of play, and so it wasn't really working with the players that he did have. So we do need to strengthen the team. So fingers crossed, having World Cup winner Emi Martinez can only be a good thing. With rumoured interest, what would you value him at? Well, of course, I would value him, even more than Jack Grealish. So if Jack Grealish was 100 million, Emi Martinez 150 million. Okay, I know no one's going to pay that. Look, my thinking on Emi Martinez is that obviously I love the guy, and I do think we'll benefit as a club with him being a World Cup winner. Ultimately, I don't think he's any rush to go and achieve anything else in Europe because he's just won the World Cup, so he's doing okay. However, he's 30. I reckon if he gets to 32, 33, he still has a few years left in him, and we haven't made it to Europe. At that stage, we should look at cashing in. We can arguably say he's the best keeper in the world at the moment. Maybe the statistics don't back that up, but statistics don't take into account, last gasp saves in the 123rd minute of extra time in the World Cup final. So I would say we can say he's one of the best keepers in the world. That's probably not going to change if he steers clear of injuries the next couple of years. I'd be looking at around the 60 million mark. If Kepa was 71 million pounds. Emi should be around that 60 million mark. If we do have to sell him, we should be looking at who we can get in, and can we get in someone world class and still make a profit. So there's really not a strong argument to sell him now unless a club comes in with a crazy high amount. I know he's been linked with Bayern Munich, but I don't think Bayern ever spends that much money on players. So I just don't see anyone being able to afford Emi Martinez really at the moment. Maybe in a couple of years, I reckon around 60 million. Maybe he'll go for 50. Okay, so should Emi Martinez be given the captaincy? Absolutely. He should have been given it at the start of the season if Steven Gerrard wanted to take it from Tyrone Mings, simply because he's the best player at the club. Now, obviously John McGinn has struggled, so this is the perfect almost excuse. You can turn around to John McGinn and say, look, Emi Martinez has won the World Cup. He really is a leader. We're going to give him that now on the field, rather than just taking it off McGinn. But I do think McGinn needs to be relieved of the pressure of captaincy, and I think he'll thrive under that. He loves being, in charge, he's the obvious captain from now on. Is Emi the best keeper in the world? I've kind of answered this one. We can definitely claim that he is. Statistically, I think it's Ter Stegen, German at Barcelona, statistically has the best save percentage. But I mean, you saw him. I would have thought that probably the best keeper in the Premier League is Hugo Lloris, but you saw in the penalty shootout, you much fancied any more to save the penalties than Lloris. So he's certainly up there. I would go as far as to say he's one of the best, who's just had the best World Cup. So form-wise, maybe you can say he's the best. The only thing would be as if Unai Emery has a different kind of way of playing, and he likes the goalkeeper to play the ball a little bit more. I'm not sure how wonderful his feet are. I'm just remembering the World Cup final, there was a horrendous back pass to him, but at the same time he ran out and kind of sliced it, and it was all fine. But the only real argument I could say is, could we bring someone else in, is if Emery wants a different style, and there's some keeper who's a little bit better at dribbling the ball. But I mean, we're splitting hairs a bit. I mean, the keeper's job is to stop the shots, and that's what Emi is really, really good at. So Emi Martinez, certainly one of the best in the world. If it gets to negotiations in a couple of years where we have to sell them, we should absolutely be pushing that. Well, he's the best goalkeeper in the world, so pay up. But hopefully he'll give us a couple of years between now and that becomes reality, and hopefully we'll be back in Europe, knocking on the door of the Champions League. So the whole conversation will be immaterial.
Dave Martinez, everybody. So you've had his thoughts on the Villa big issue of the day, but the Villa big issue of the future is events that will transpire at Villa Park on Monday afternoon at 5:30 on the reputable TV streaming channel that is Amazon in the UK. Other channels are available overseas, where Jurgen Klopp brings his merry men of Liverpool down to Villa Park. They've already been in action since the World Cup in the Carabao Cup, where they had a entertaining game away at Man City, where Man City eventually came away with the victory, 3-2 winners. But we've just been talking about Martinez. He's not playing on Monday for Villa. So we'll get onto the Villa news a little later. But in terms of Liverpool, what are your thoughts about Liverpool coming to town? Because before you start, I did give you kind of a leading question about how many points Brighton were ahead of Villa in the Premier League table at time of recording before the Christmas fixtures. I'll ask you the same question again in terms of Liverpool. How many points are Liverpool ahead of Villa in the Premier League table at time of recording?
4.
Hang on. It is 4. Your prediction is back in. 4. I mean, we've played a game more, but 4 points separate Villa from Liverpool at time recording, which separates 12 from 6 at time recording. So again, just detailing the very condensed nature of the middle bit of the Premier League table, from 6th to 17th, separated by 8 points at time recording. But apart from losing to Man City in the League Cup, what do you think about Liverpool?
I think Liverpool are quite lucky that we've had the World Cup break come in, just to have a little bit more time for Klopp to work on the side. It's that 7-year itch for him, isn't it? Every 7 years he tends to go on a downward spiral with his teams, minds, and
quite a long time though. To be fair, 7 years. That's a decent stretch.
Oh, of course it is. But I think everybody was a little bit worried that this might happen. They haven't had the most fantastic starts to the season. I mean, first opening game, you expected them to walk all over Fulham at Craven Cottage, and Mitrovic, who has had a very good season so far.
Yep, nobody saw that coming.
No one saw that coming. Fulham did really well against them. You look at the fact that Leeds went and beat them at Anfield, which was a shock result as well. And you started to worry about Liverpool a bit. They were quite a bit off the trail. They lost to Nottingham Forest at the City Ground. Yep. But then they started to win a few, and they started to get that momentum back. And by all accounts, they were unlucky against Man City the other night. I think they're very much in the same boat as Man City, weren't they? Or in the fact that there were a few players who have been well rested enough and were able to come back a little bit earlier than they thought they would to play. Man City got De Bruyne, who quite weeks off.
Yeah, 2 weeks. In terms of that game kind of before, Pep Guardiola going, I ain't got many players, and Klopp going, I ain't got many players. It's like, you got to bring players who've been at the World Cup off your bench. Oh, boo bloody you. In terms of that, was my attitude. It's
completely.
In terms of, it is a bit old school. And Brian Clough, he had his period in time, very successful manager. A lot of his methods are known as old school now. I mean, in terms of they wouldn't really work in the current game. But an attitude which is, most people would still say was old school, but I do agree with actually, was one of his many memorable quotes was along the lines of, if your reserve players aren't good enough to play for your first team, then what have you got them at the club for? And I do agree with that in terms of, if you got a squad of 25 players, and even your youth players as well, third choice players, really, if you like, first choice, then reserves. If they're good enough to play for you, then they shouldn't be at your club. I mean, in terms of, you're not going to get 25 players exactly the same ability for all clubs, but in terms of Man City's, Liverpool's of this world, they've got enough to be going on with, really.
Yeah, and they've had enough players who weren't at the World Cup who will be rested as well. All this talk of, it's not fair, Erling Haaland hasn't played for a month. He's dressing up the mannequins in Kevin De Bruyne shirts and whatnot. Yep. Mo Salah hasn't played for the last month. Bobby Firmino didn't play for the last month. They've had a couple of players who have been out with injury, but Thiago hasn't played for the last month either. Joe Gomez, a very good centre-back. Andy Robertson. Trent Alexander-Arnold hasn't played for the last month, you know. They've got enough about them, and they should be quite fresh. Yes, they've got one or two injuries, Diego Jota and Luis Diaz, but this could be a very pivotal moment in Liverpool's season. And if they can kickstart the restart with a win and get through to the end of January unbeaten, we could be seeing them mounting a challenge again for those Champions League places, if not higher. But, you know, it is what it is. We'll, I suppose we'll see come Monday, won't we?
Yeah, they've got more than enough quality to maintain, as you say, their push towards the Champions League. At time recording, they are 7 points off the Champions League places. But, you know, mass fans will tell you that's 3 wins. So they will feel comfortable in terms of trying to break the gap. Although, in terms of off the field, the current ownership have made noises that they want to sell or looking for investment, as it were. In terms of this Liverpool team really challenging for the title, you'd think they are a few players short, but still more than a match for most of the teams in the league on their day. In terms of the Villa side, we have mentioned that Martinez will not be playing on Monday. Robin Olsen looks like he will be playing in goal. I mean, the slight injury doubt at this time, but looks more than likely that he will be playing. At time recording, the only other particular injury, big doubt / rule out / probably has been ruled out, Jacob Ramsey, who may or may not be Villa's player of the calendar year. We will leave Twitter to decide upon that. But from the Villa perspective, Emre's first and only to date home game in the Premier League against Man United. 4-4-2 was the formation that was played, with the wide players in midfield dropping back, as we said, to that defensive 6, especially when we got the goals early on. What do you think Emery is going to be doing tactically wise against this Liverpool team? Same again, or do you think we got a few more tricks up our sleeve for the visit of Jurgen Klopp?
I think it'll be the same again. I don't see him changing anything at the moment. That 4-4-2 come 4-2-2-2 when we attack, you know, an overload in the centre there, but then having a nice evenly spread 4-4-2 when we're defending to double up on the likes of Mo Salah and Robertson when they're trying to make tracks down the wing. So yeah, for me, it's going to be the same old. It's a shame that Jacob Ramsey isn't playing, because he brings a lot of energy to the team, and for me, he's been one of the better players of the calendar year. I can think of at least 5 games that he's played well in.
Yeah, I mean that was a tongue-in-cheek comment, but the reality is, for most of the calendar year, we've been crap. So there's not too many players you can think of. We've had like 10, 15, 20 quality games. So having 5 good games probably does put you quite high up the list by default, you'd probably say.
It does, and thinking about the teams that they are, when you look at, he's played well against Man United twice at home now. You know, played well against Man City at home in a different formation. And there are other games also, you know, Leeds at home where he smashed 2 in. And when we played Brentford at home as well, you know, recently under Aaron Danks. But it is what it is. For me, without him there, you need somebody who's got energy. And you look no further than the captain for that, because John McGinn has got energy in an abundance. Scored the winner against Chelsea in the pre-season or the mid-season friendly. He's on riding the crest of a wave himself. 3rd time he's been voted as the Scottish men's national player of the year this week. He can sit on that left side of midfield and then push forward into the attacking 10 roles, which we know he likes to play. You have Buendia doing the same on the right, and you have Dendoncker and Louise in centre mid, unless Unai Emery has been able to find Morgan Sanson, because he seems to have got lost again.
Yeah.
But for me,
it's a nightmare, Spaghetti Junction, if you don't know where you're going.
yeah, I mean, the back four picks itself on recent form with Cash, Conser, Mings, and Dean. The goalkeeper, I'd put Philip Marshall in goal, if I'm honest with you. Jed Steer with one leg. The one big question is going to be the strikers, and it seems that Unai Emery favours Ollie Watkins because of his running, his explosive pace, his doggedness, and he does all the pressing that he needs to. However, we've seen in the games that Unai Emery has had, including those mid-season ones, Danny Ings hasn't done too badly for himself. He got the 2 goals against Brighton, and then he scored against Brighton again, and that was pressing the goalkeeper in that 2-2 draw in the Middle East and capitalising on an error there. So if he's showing that he can do that with a strike partner up front, and most people would say that Danny Ings is better with a strike partner, he deserves that chance. And I'd put Leon Bailey up front with him at the moment because he's been playing very well. Gives you a bit more flexibility as well to turn it into a 5-man midfield if you absolutely need to. So that'd be my starting lineup. And I would hope that we get to see Caden Young on the bench. I mean, there's been those viral clips of him absolutely destroying the 60 million rated Mark Cucurella in the game where John McGinn scored. So if he's going to come on, if he's going to be positive and he wants to run at people, why not give him the opportunity and have Cameron Archer on the bench as well and Ollie Watkins? And when we're getting a little bit tired or Ings needs to come off because he doesn't tend to last the 90, then you've got those players who can come on. And for me, when you're playing against the Liverpool team who potentially won't have Virgil van Dijk in defence, I mean, he may be back by then. I'd be surprised if he wasn't. They may not have Addison in goal. Again, I think because of those two teams getting knocked out in the quarterfinals, there's a good chance that they will be back and Liverpool will want to hit the ground running. But if they aren't available and it's Kelleher and Gomez, 2 people who could have a mistake in them or may not be 100% confident, you want a sniper in the penalty area like Danny Ings and somebody like Leon Bailey running at them to really put them under pressure, to make them get thinking and get them nervous to start off with. Because remember what happened the last time Joe Gomez started a league game at Villa Park. It was quite the night.
Yep, it was a tasty one. Van Dijk played that game as well, from what I can remember. But yeah. in terms of Villa team, I think you play Bailey because he's in a bit of form, and I think in terms of pretty much for the entirety of his career to date at Villa, it's been either if only he wasn't injured, or if only we could keep him fit, or if only we could just get him a run in the team. And we've talked about games earlier in the season where, you kind of tearing your hair out, in terms of his Southampton at home, for example, dispossessed like 85 times within the first 10 minutes. 65 of those are by the ball boys going in to the stadium before the game. But he's in a bit of form. He's a confidence player, in terms of he hasn't come out and said it, but you'd have to think based on what was allowed to come out of his camp when Gerrard was in charge, that he's going to be happier with the current management, that current situation, giving him more of a, not a free role, I don't mean like that, but kind of, I believe in you, go and do that type mentality. I think he plays in terms of, in that situation, do you play Watkins or Ings up front? I can see the arguments for playing both, to be honest. I mean, again, you've alluded to in terms of who Liverpool are going to be playing. I think that is a factor in terms of, do you play Ings or Watkins? I'd say in terms of, if Van Dijk wasn't playing and Gomez was playing, I'd be more tempted to play Ings. If Van Dijk plays, I'll probably play it wouldn't be my sole determination as to this, but I think if Van Dijk plays, I would lean more towards Watkins to play. And I think you mentioned in terms of young, it does demonstrate there are opportunities for a couple of more younger players to make their mark in the Villa first team squad moving forwards under Emery. And, we've got a few, we mentioned Jacob Ramsey 5 times best player of the game this year for Villa. So there are opportunities for youngsters to break their way through. And, it's always nice to get another one on the conveyor belt. But you would imagine in terms of the tactical shape, I would agree with you. I don't think we are going to be reinventing the wheel at this point. I think it's going to be, in terms of that defensive shape and solidarity and style that we saw against Man United and against Brighton away once we had the lead. I think we're going to carry on doing that. And, it's again similar to United. It is kind of a free shot in a sense of, I don't think subject to when our predictions come up in a couple of minutes' time, most people don't expect Villa to win. Most people think Liverpool are going to get the 3 points. Difficult Christmas period with, we've got Spurs coming after that. So most people have already kind of written us off in terms of getting any points from those 2 games. So, yeah, in that situation, you can play with a little bit more freedom in a sense of, no one expects us to do anything. And we do have a tactical plan. You are going to assume, even if we haven't predicted it correctly, there will be a plan, which you couldn't have said probably if this got earlier on in the season. So we will be having a go in whatever way go is interpreted by Unai Emery. So I have just said that most people will be writing Villa off and expecting Liverpool to get the 3 points. Prediction time. Are you one of those people? Or are you continuing your positive prediction streak for Villa and anticipating that Villa will get a result out of this game?
I really don't like to be this person. I don't like to be the Grinch, but unfortunately I am going to be. And I think that Liverpool do beat us. As I say, regardless of whether Alisson and Van Dijk play, I think that Liverpool will beat us. And the main reason for that is Robin Olsen being in goal more than anything else. Actually, it's not just that. It's the fact that Emi Martinez is not in goal. Yep. Is the main thing. Dependent on whether Alisson and Van Dijk play will depend on the score. And I can't see them not playing. And because of that, I think we're going to see a resurgent Liverpool. We've got a lot of our players playing that you'd expect to play. I think we'll score. I think we'll get 1. But I think Liverpool will have too much for us. And I think Liverpool will get 3. So I think it's going to be 3-1 Liverpool, unfortunately. Had Alisson and Van Dijk not been playing, I'd have said 4-2. I think we get a couple of goals, but yeah, 3-1.
Well, in kind of a glass half full, glass half empty scenario, I am going to be more optimistic than you.
Oh, bloody hell!
But I also think we're going to lose. I think it's going to be 2-1. 2-1 Liverpool. I mean, I agree with you in terms of Martinez not playing is a massive blow. I mean, in terms of there is the ability, obviously, because Martinez is a better goalkeeper than Robin Olsen comfortably. So there's also a psychological element to it as well. Martinez, as we've alluded to, really increased his reputation during the World Cup. So I've had Liverpool fans message me going, "Oh, is Martinez playing? Is Martinez playing?" It's going to be a big lift for them knowing that Martinez is not going to play. Even though, it's not a situation where there's like 14 penalties a game at Villa Park. But, in terms of he's now on the stage, that world stage, he's got that reputation now. And, it's those little elements in games that can make the big difference. And him not being on that team sheet for Villa is a massive boost for Liverpool. And I think in terms of Liverpool, they started to get on a bit of a run before the break, as Villa had as well. But I think in terms of, there's some of their players you mentioned who have been able to have the rest. Salah's had a rest. Robertson's had a rest. As you said, Arnold's probably had a rest kind of in terms of playing time. I think it'll take them a while to get going. I think in terms of the game, I think, the crowd will be up for it. And, there's all the cliches about games under the lights. And hopefully the fans can get to the ground and with the trains not running and the local bus service probably being its usual reliable self. But yeah, I think we'll make a go of it. I think we're going to have a plan, as we said, tactically, and I think we will frustrate Liverpool for large parts of the game. But yeah, I think the quality of Liverpool is going to, those fine margins, in terms of, I'm hoping that Olsen doesn't pull a howler, but there's going to be a sense of, one of Liverpool's goals, somebody will say, Olsen could have done a bit better there. Not necessarily thrown it in his own net, but, in terms of, I think there's going to be, that kind of split second kind of, you got to react and he won't react. But that is going to be, unfortunately, an away win, kind of, we both predicted there. And, well, we do feel like the Grinch who stole Christmas, because we maybe potentially have stolen the joy from the Villa fans thinking that we were going to predict a win. But places where you will always find joy are our Twitter page at Talk Trinity. Our polls, you've seen it this week, they always bring joy. They always bring good tidings and festive cheer to everybody. So go and check those out at Talk Trinity. We may even let you know if Alisson and Van Dijk are playing. So there is where you can keep up to date with all the Villa news. You can listen to previous episodes of our podcast on our audio providers, Apple, Amazon. I haven't broken, I just forgot the fourth. Spotify, Google. We are on Fan Hub, so you go and check us out there. Or you can check out our visual episodes on our YouTube channel, Talk of the Trinity. Unfortunately, you've realised if you're listening to the audio version and you're thinking, maybe we will get to see Dave Martinez Dave in the video version on YouTube. As much as we like the extra clicks, and unfortunately, he is not there on a video, but he is on other episodes. So go and check those out on our YouTube channel. All our previous Dave episodes. Just get your playlist, your curated playlist back to back. I mean, what a way to celebrate Christmas there. Before I go off and do that, I will leave you with Mr. Trinity for his final thoughts on this festive episode. But thank you very much for listening, watching, engaging. However you are enjoying this podcast, we very much appreciate it. Merry Christmas, and we will be back with you again soon.
Yeah, as Baz says, cheers, Tar. Thank you very much for listening, whether it's on the audio podcasts or whether you're watching as our beautiful faces and demeanours give you our thoughts on all things Aston Villa, including all things Emi Martinez. But remember, it's Liverpool on Boxing Day. And whether you're home alone or you're going down to Villa Park and you're going to see those filthy animals in the opposite corner, do not be like Baz and I. Do not say we're going to lose. Do not be a muppet. We hope that at the end, you're there celebrating 3 points by singing yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker. Yes, he's Villa till he dies. I'm Villa till I die. Cheers, Tar. Thank you very much. Up the fucking Villa.